Imagine turning on the news right now and seeing a lead story about powerful leaders who are just hoarding massive amounts of wealth.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And they are actively twisting the legal system to their advantage. They're aggressively evicting vulnerable families from their homes just to build these, larger private estates.
Wow, yeah. I mean, it sounds incredibly familiar.
It does.
Mhm.
And perhaps the wildest part is they are simultaneously going on camera claiming they have total divine backing for absolutely everything they do.
You could honestly pull up an article describing those exact dynamics today.
You really could. But the text we are jumping headfirst into today is actually an ancient crisis.
Right.
So welcome to the deep dive, where we are spending our time with a bilingual Hebrew and English text, specifically the book of Micah, chapters 1 through 7.
And before we jump into the deep end here, it is really important to note for you listening that, well, while this is a profoundly significant theological text for a lot of religious traditions, our role today is simply to be your impartial guides.
Exactly.
We are looking at this strictly through the lens of literature, history, and ancient socioeconomic commentary. We're not taking sides or endorsing anything.
Right. Our mission is just to extract the ideas and the historical context captured in these ancient pages. We are going to unpack what is a fiercely intense dual message.
It really is intense.
Yeah, you have this brutal judgment against a corrupt ruling class, the visceral, almost unbearable agony of the prophet delivering the news, and then out of nowhere, a sudden dramatic structural whiplash toward utopian hope.
Yes, the pivot is wild.
And finally, it lands on a timeless distillation of what true daily justice actually looks like on the ground.
It's a fascinating piece of literature because it swings wildly from the absolute darkest depths of human corruption to the highest peaks of human potential.
Yeah.
And, it does so while making some incredibly sharp observations about human nature.
So to understand the sheer force of the judgment that opens this text, we really have to look at the who and the what. The text sets the historical stage right away. It takes place during the days of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, who were kings of Judah. And the focus is squarely on the capital cities, Samaria and Jerusalem.
And those specific kings, their reigns are crucial for understanding why the text is so incredibly angry.
How so?
Well, if we look at the socioeconomic reality of that specific era, we're talking to the 8th century BCE, here it was a period characterized by explosive economic growth.
Okay, so times were good.
Well, yes, but only for a select few.
Yeah.
You had a rapid shift happening. Traditionally, ancient Israelite society was based on ancestral land ownership.
Like family farms?
Exactly. Families passing down small family farms for generations. But during this period, you see the rise of essentially corporate agriculture.
Oh, wow. So they were getting bought out.
Worse than that, a few wealthy elites began buying up or even seizing the land, creating massive estates, and the ancient middle class was effectively eradicated.
And Micah does not hold back in describing the mechanics of that eradication. I mean, in chapter 2, the text says the ruling class literally stays awake in their beds, devising iniquity.
Right, they're plotting it.
I found that detail so chilling. They aren't just, stumbling into bad behavior. They are lying awake, treating systemic oppression like a midnight brainstorming session.
Yeah, it's premeditated.
And when morning light hits, they execute the plan. And when the text gives the reason why, it simply says, because it is in the power of their hand.
That is the ultimate naked expression of unchecked privilege right there.
Might makes right.
Exactly. They do it simply because no one can stop them. The psychological profile the text builds here is of a ruling class completely disconnected from empathy.
They covet fields and seize them. They take away houses. They literally cast women and young children out of their, quote, pleasant houses.
It's brutal.
And then chapter 3 takes this economic oppression and escalates it into a straight-up horror movie metaphor.
Yeah, the imagery here is shocking.
Micah says these corrupt rulers hate the good and love the evil. He describes them as tearing the skin and flesh off the people, breaking their bones, and chopping them up in pieces like meat for a cooking pot.
Which is just, it's grotesque. But the author is using that grotesque imagery to make a profound point about commodification.
Right.
When you take away a family's ancestral land, you're taking away their ability to feed themselves, their independence, and their dignity.
You're taking their life.
Precisely. You reduce human beings to raw materials for your own wealth generation. The text is arguing that systemic economic oppression is indistinguishable from cannibalism.
Wow.
You are literally consuming the lives of the poor.
The part that stood out to me as the most infuriating is the total systemic rot. It wasn't just a few rogue politicians doing this.
No, it was everyone in power.
Right. The text says the heads judge for bribes, the priests teach for hire, and the prophets divine for money.
A complete monopoly on corruption.
Yeah, yet they lean on the Lord and say, "Is not the Lord in the midst of us? No evil shall come upon us." It seems like the political, judicial, and religious leaders formed a localized syndicate of oppression.
They absolutely did. And the religious leaders, they essentially provided the theological cover for the political leaders' greed.
So convenient for them.
Oh, very. It is a complete institutional failure. The ruling class believes their wealth and power are evidence of divine favor, like a sort of ancient prosperity gospel.
Right, like God must love us because we're rich.
Exactly. But the text strips away that religious veneer and delivers a devastating verdict. The systemic oppression of the socially weak is an incurable wound.
It's fatal.
Because they have reduced human beings to meat in a pot, Jerusalem itself is sentenced to become a heap of ruins. The corruption guarantees its own destruction.
So the elite are lying in their beds, calmly calculating this horror as if it's just standard business. But the reaction on the street from the messenger delivering this doom is the exact opposite.
It's a stark contrast.
Yeah, the prophet Micah isn't just a detached observer reading a verdict from a clipboard. The weight of this message completely breaks him.
It physically destroys him.
In chapter 1, he wails and howls. He says, "I will go stripped and naked. I will make a wailing like the jackals and a mourning like the ostriches."
And that despair, it continues all the way into chapter 7.
Yeah.
He cries, "Woe is me."
Yeah.
He describes himself as feeling like the very last summer fruit with nothing left to eat, lamenting that the godly man has perished out of the earth.
Like he's the only one left.
Yeah, and everyone is hunting their own brother with a net. He is entirely undone by the society he is witnessing.
I have to challenge this a bit, though.
Okay, sure.
Walking around naked, howling like a wild animal. I mean, if I saw a guy doing that downtown today, I wouldn't think, wow, what a profound theological message.
Right, you'd call the cops.
I would think the man was having a complete mental breakdown and call for help. How did anyone in the ancient world take this seriously?
Well, that is a very natural modern reaction. But in the ancient Near East, prophets frequently engaged in what scholars call sign acts.
Sign acts.
Yeah, it was a form of extreme street theater designed to shock the public out of their complacency.
Oh, I see.
Micah's visceral, physical agony is meant to be a direct mirror of God's broken heart over the people.
So he's acting out the divine emotion.
Exactly. It takes this abstract concept, divine judgment, and makes it a deeply relational, visible tragedy. Micah is forcing the onlookers to physically see the devastating emotional toll of their societal sins.
He is making the invisible spiritual reality impossible to ignore.
Perfectly said.
And looking at the Hebrew side of the text, he pairs this extreme physical performance with a brilliant linguistic layer.
Oh, the Hebrew wordplay is incredible.
The text uses these devastating geographical wordplays to deliver the bad news.
Yeah.
He creates dark, inescapable puns using the names of the towns he is prophesying against.
And the oral nature of the original language is vital here. In a largely oral culture, a pun is like a viral meme.
A viral meme, I love that.
It makes the message unforgettable. For example, in chapter 1, he addresses a town called Beth-leafra, which translates to house of dust.
Okay.
And his prophecy for them is to roll themselves in the afar, the dust.
Oh, man. It's like looking at a town called Asheville and telling the residents they're going to burn to ashes.
That's a perfect modern equivalent. Or he addresses the inhabitants of Saphir, a name that implies beauty or fairness.
And what does he tell them?
He tells them they will pass away in nakedness and shame. The wordplay drives home a terrifying point for the original audience.
Yeah.
Your doom is literally written into the very names of your hometowns.
That is so bleak.
It is baked into the geography of the land you thought you permanently owned.
So we have a society where the elite have turned the justice system into a literal meat grinder.
Yeah.
The prophet is howling in the streets in absolute despair, and the capital city is sentenced to become a pile of rubble. It is as gritty and doom-laden as it gets.
Very dark.
Then, right when the text hits absolute rock bottom at the end of chapter 3, I mean, the Temple Mountain is described as becoming the high places of a forest, completely desolate. We turn the page to chapter 4, and there is a massive, dramatic structural shift.
The transition from chapter 3 to chapter 4 is one of the most stunning pivots in all of ancient literature.
It's jarring. It goes from a gritty, apocalyptic, true crime documentary straight into a serene, utopian dreamscape.
It really does.
Chapter 4 opens with, But in the end of days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the top of the mountains. Suddenly, the text introduces this famous imagery of nations beating their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
And notice the specific economic promise that follows the disarmament there. The text says, "They shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid."
See, that feels like a direct response to the crimes we saw back in chapter 2.
How do you mean?
Well, the elite were stealing fields and evicting women from their homes, creating a society of terror and displacement. Now, the ultimate hope presented is absolute, unshakable home security.
Ah, yes. It is the restoration of dignity and property to the common person. The promise isn't just an end to war. It is an end to systemic economic anxiety.
Everyone gets their own piece of land, and no one can take it away.
Exactly.
We also get the introduction of a new kind of leader in chapter 5. The text says a ruler will come from the tiny, insignificant town of Bethlehem Ephrathah.
Which is very deliberate.
Right. It seems like it's bypassing the corrupt power centers of Jerusalem and Samaria entirely.
It is. God is starting fresh from the bottom up.
And the surviving people, who the text calls the remnant of Jacob, are described with a fascinating dual nature. They will be refreshing as dew from the Lord, but also fierce as a lion among the beasts of the forest.
It's a really powerful image of a renewed people.
But reading this, the structural whiplash is intense. I mean, how are you supposed to reconcile these two extremes? You go from cannibal elites and guaranteed destruction to peaceful fig trees and a perfect leader.
It definitely feels disjointed if you view it as a strict timeline of immediate events.
Right.
But if you look at the underlying theology of the text, it is a necessary logical sequence.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The text argues that the corrupt, false security of the current elite must be completely demolished. That is the judgment phase. You cannot put a fresh coat of paint on a rotten foundation.
Oh, I see.
The entire system of oppression, the bribery, the land theft, the religious hypocrisy, it has to be razed to the ground so that true divine peace can be built from scratch using that purified remnant.
You have to completely wipe the corrupted hard drive before you can install the new operating system.
That's exactly it. The judgment is not just punishment for punishment's sake. In the logic of the narrative, it is the painful prerequisite for the utopian hope.
Okay, that makes sense. So we have seen the terrifying reality of the judgment, and we've explored this beautiful, distant future hope.
Right.
But that leaves a massive gap. What does the text demand of the listener right now in the messy middle?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. How does a believer actually practice this true justice in daily life?
And that tension brings us to what is arguably the climax of the entire book in chapter 6. The text presents a cosmic courtroom scene.
God essentially files a lawsuit against his own people.
He does.
He calls the mountains and the foundations of the earth to act as the jury. And he asks this incredibly poignant question, "O my people, what have I done unto thee? Testify against me."
God reminds the people of their shared histories, specifically how he rescued them from slavery in Egypt. He is taking the stand and asking, where did this relationship break down? Why have you turned into the very slave drivers I rescued you from?
And the people's response to this lawsuit is fascinating because it is an absurd escalation of religious bribery.
Oh, it was wild.
They are suddenly caught, and they ask, how do we fix this? Do we bring yearling calves? Will God be pleased with thousands of rams? What about 10,000s of rivers of oil?
Rivers of oil.
It just gets more and more ridiculous, peaking with them asking if they should sacrifice their own firstborn children to pay for their sins.
It's extreme desperation.
Reading this, it felt almost comical, like a teenager who just wrecked the family car offering their parents $1 billion they don't even have.
Yeah.
What is the psychological drive behind offering rivers of oil?
Well, it reveals a profound misunderstanding of the nature of the relationship.
Oh, so?
The people think God operates just like their corrupt human judges. That he can be bought off if the price is right. They view religion as entirely transactional.
Okay, so if I do X, God has to do Y.
Exactly. If you commit a sin, you just pay a fine in the form of an animal sacrifice or agricultural wealth. Human nature often prefers a transaction to a transformation.
Oh.
It is much easier to write a check or offer a river of oil than it is to fundamentally change how you treat your neighbors.
Give the giant river of oil, get the get-out-of-jail-free card, and go right back to stealing your neighbor's field tomorrow.
Precisely. And Micah 6.8 completely shatters that transactional mindset. It serves as the core thesis of the book.
It's a very famous verse.
It is. The prophet responds to their wild offers by saying, "It hath been told thee, O man, what is good, and what the Lord doth require of thee, only to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God."
It is so simple, yet completely devastating to the people's offers. God doesn't want their calves, their oil, or their extravagant religious displays.
No.
He wants their character.
True faith, according to Micah, isn't found in elaborate rituals. And it certainly isn't found in the halls of power where the elite are chopping people up for profit.
Right.
It is found in the quiet, mundane, daily practices of social equity, doing justice and loving mercy.
And the text immediately grounds this lofty theology in practical, everyday reality. Like, right after telling them to walk humbly, chapter 6 calls out the treasures of wickedness and the scant measure.
Yes, the economic reality.
It asks, shall I be pure with wicked balances and with a bag of deceitful weights? What exactly are those?
Well, the scant measure and the deceitful weights were the tools of everyday economic fraud in the ancient marketplace.
Like at the local market.
Yeah. To understand this, picture an ancient market where goods like grain or silver are weighed on a physical balance scale.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
A merchant would have a bag of stone weights to counterbalance the customer's payment, but a corrupt merchant would shave a little bit off their stone weights or have two sets of weights, a heavier one for buying and a lighter one for selling.
Oh, wow. So they're rigging the game.
Exactly. They were altering their scales to cheat the customer out of a tiny fraction of value on every single transaction.
So doing justice and loving mercy isn't just about grand, sweeping political gestures or passing major legislation.
No, not at all.
It's literally about not rigging the scale at your local grocery store. It's about fundamental economic fairness in your daily face-to-face interactions.
That's the heart of it. The text is arguing that true religion is authenticated by how you treat the most vulnerable person in your community during a standard business transaction.
It's all about the details.
The elite in Jerusalem had a religion that was loud, public, and expensive. They were offering the metaphorical rivers of oil, but their daily lives were filled with theft and cruelty.
Hypocrisy.
Micah is telling them that the divine rejects the loud religion if the quiet scales are rigged. You cannot compartmentalize your spiritual beliefs from your economic and social practices.
Wow. We have really journeyed through the extremes of this text today.
We really have.
We started by uncovering the ancient elite's brutal real estate scams, where they stayed awake planning how to steal homes, leading to that horrifying metaphor of chopping people up for the cooking pot.
The cannibalism imagery.
Yeah. And then we explored the visceral, naked lament of the prophet Micah and the inescapable Hebrew puns that warned of doom.
Dust to dust.
Yeah. We experienced the structural whiplash, jumping past the apocalyptic rubble straight into the utopian vision of plowshares and peaceful fig trees.
The great pivot.
And it all landed on the profound, challenging simplicity of Micah 6.8. You know, doing justice, loving mercy, and walking humbly with honest weights in your bag.
The journey the text takes you on is intense, but it is entirely necessary to tear down the false security and point toward a society built on genuine equity.
To wrap up our deep dive today, I want to point out how the book actually ends.
It's a beautiful ending.
It really is.
Yeah.
After all the agony, the fierce judgment, the calls for systemic change, Chapter 7 concludes with an incredibly beautiful image of ultimate restoration.
Yeah.
It says, God will have compassion and will cast all their sins into the depths of the sea. The slate gets wiped entirely clean.
Which provides profound comfort and closure after such a searing critique of human behavior.
Exactly. So here's a final thought for you to mull over as you step away from this ancient text and back into your daily routine.
Take it away.
In a modern world that is still clearly struggling with the hoarding of power, systemic corruption, and its own sophisticated versions of deceitful weights, consider how your own daily actions echo the themes we discussed today.
That's a good question.
Are your habits aligned with the hoarding and self-preservation of that ancient elite? Or with the quiet, revolutionary mandate to simply do justice and love mercy? What kind of legacy are your metaphorical weights and balances leaving behind in your community today?